Good evening, everyone, and great to be with you. Celebrating the feast of Thomas More, we're honoured that Australia's celebrated journalist and commentator on contemporary affairs, Paul Kelly, will speak on politics and religion, the growing clash. Sometime after Henry VIII raised the question of his marriage with Thomas More, while walking alongside the riverside at Chelsea with William Roper, said, "Now would to our Lord, son Roper, upon condition that three things were well established in Christendom, I were put in a sack and here presently cast into the Thames." Roper asked, "What great things be those, sir, that should move you so to wish?" More replied, "In faith, son, they be these. The first is that where the most part of Christian princes be at mortal wars, they were all at a universal peace. The second, that where the Church of Christ is at this present sore afflicted with many errors and heresies, it were well settled in a perfect uniformity of religion. The third, that where the king's matter of his marriage is now come in question, it were to the glory of God and quietness of all parts brought to a good conclusion." I dare say that there be universal peace amongst nations and agreement on all matters theological in the Church, there will always be work to be done by the likes of Thomas More, regardless of the nuptial status of our leaders. And he will always be there to provide us with inspiration. My recently deceased father, Gerard, had a great devotion to Thomas More. Just after he went on the High Court bench, he delivered a lengthy speech on the peace of Thomas More, in which he spoke of More as the paradigm of independence. He returned to this theme of independence 2 years later in a speech entitled "The Independence of Thomas More." He described independence as the quintessential professional virtue, independence of popular acclaim, of power or patronage, of wealth, of improper influence by state or church, by family or friends. It's a lonely virtue, which, if it's not to be transformed into stubborn arrogance, requires humility of mind, devotion to learning, and breadth of experience. After his retirement as Chief Justice of Australia, he addressed the Thomas More Society in Sydney, observing, "Thomas More died rather than deny his conscience. It was not a conscience that followed the ipse dixit of the bishops of his church. It was not a conscience that was born out of institutional loyalty. It was a conscience that grew over the years of prayer, study and reflection and the daily penance of the hair shirt." In that speech, he expressed his sadness that Cardinal George Pell had taken to saying Catholics should stop talking about the primacy of conscience. He observed, "Had Thomas More and John Fisher followed not their consciences, but the majority of the English bishops at the time, we would not have had their example to inspire the human spirit, and the history of the Church and of England would have been the poorer." This led to a detailed, respectful correspondence between Pell and my father. Honouring my deceased father and the confidentiality of the correspondence from Cardinal Pell, might I simply close with a couple of quotes from my father's letter to Cardinal Pell on the 29th of January 2002. "When officers of the Church, even the Roman dicasteries, or individual bishops, assert the power to prescribe what individuals or groups must do or refrain from doing, submission must surely depend on whether the individual consciences accept the prescription. There can be no conflict between truth and reason," he said, "nor should there be any fear of discussion of the truth. I confess that the Pope's prohibition of discussion on his teaching about women's ordination seems to suggest that the discussion is the enemy of the truth. Far from leading to acceptance of the teaching, the prohibition casts doubt upon what is taught. It's counterproductive. Teaching authority of the Church is one thing, the power to compel belief is another. I'm one Australian Catholic, grateful for the commitment to conscience displayed by my father, the late Sir Gerard Brennan. I'm delighted that he and Cardinal Pell could disagree cogently and respectfully. Long may the peace and independence of Sir Thomas More continue to inspire and challenge us as we prepare for the next phase of our plenary council, while there will be a growing clash between politics and religion. Thank you.